Hello and welcome to Studio 51. I'm Lauren DeVito.
And I'm Samantha Sartori. Studio 51 is a weekly news magazine produced by Loyola University Chicago students. We're called Studio 51 because we're located in this lovely street studio at 51 East Pearson. This week, we have some special reports about the upcoming election, including an in-depth look at the minimum wage ballot proposal. Later, we'll sit down with the Loyola Phoenix news editor to find out our college students voting.
Hey Sam, did you catch the World Series last night?
Unfortunately, I missed it, but Sports in 51 Seconds will fill us in.
And our foodie takes us to Ghirardelli to sample some sinful delights. And stay tuned to get your weather forecast for the upcoming spooky weekend.
Lauren, do you know what you're going to be for Halloween?
I do, but I'll tell you later. For now, let's take a look at our entertainment segment for the do's and don'ts on Halloween's Chicago festivities.
But first, let's check in with Joaquin Carrig for this week's news summary. Joaquin?
Thanks, Sam. Here's our top story. Tuesday's election day, and it's a real horse race in Illinois. Right now, the latest poll has Governor Pat Quinn with 45% of the vote and businessman Bruce Rauner with 42%. This new poll, conducted by Early and Often, shows Republican Rauner doing surprisingly well in Chicago, collecting 20% of the vote. Meanwhile, Quinn is faring well in southern Illinois, where he is tied with Rauner. This race will definitely be going down to the wire. Illinois residents will also be casting their vote on several ballot proposals, including one on minimum wage. Studio 51's Lauren Smith takes a closer look.
With less than a week until Election Day, candidates Bruce Rauner and Governor Pat Quinn are still neck and neck. But on this election ballot, voters will be doing more than just deciding the next governor of Illinois. They'll also be answering some pretty controversial advisory questions. One referendum question is on the Illinois minimum wage increase from $8.25 to $10 an hour. According to the Chicago Tribune, a minimum wage increase could affect about 400,000 employees in Chicago. Governor Pat Quinn has shown major support towards raising the minimum wage, but some are still convinced that this is just a strategy to stay in office.
This is a political issue that was put on the ballot at the bequest of Pat Quinn and the Democratic Party to hype up their election turnout.
Timothy Klassen, an associate professor of economics at Loyola University Chicago, recognizes the measure's possible impact.
To live in Chicago on a minimum wage individually is relatively hard. If you're working 2,000 hours at the minimum wage, you're making about $16,000, $16,500. And so is that a living wage? Is that feasible to live on? Not clear, but in general, the number of workers actually making minimum wage in the city, how many people are affected by this is one question.
If the next governor decides to raise the minimum wage, Nicholas Lash, a professor of finance at Loyola University, says it will be a setback for small businesses and the unemployment rate.
Somebody's going to take a hit. One, it could be the owners, okay? Secondly, it could be the employees, okay, though you hire less. And a third could be they'll end up raising prices.
Although the referendum questions are non-binding, they will still give the next governor an idea of what the people want. Reporting in front of the Illinois Board of Election building for Studio 51, I'm Lauren Smith.
Thanks, Lauren. Also on the ballot is the race for one U.S. Senate seat here in Illinois, between incumbent Dick Durbin and Republican challenger Jim Oberweis. There are many races for state and county seats as well. Voting is easy here in Chicago with early voting polls already open, and you can find your polling precinct by going to the Illinois State Board of Elections website. Meanwhile, in Maine, 33-year-old nurse Casey Hickox has left her state-mandated home quarantine. State health officials are trying to obtain a court order to forcibly quarantine the nurse who treated Ebola patients in Sierra Leone. Hickox defied her advised quarantine when she and her boyfriend left their house in Fort Kent to go for a bike ride. Despite testing negative for the virus twice, Hickox was asked to remain in her house until the 21-day incubation period passed. She believes she shouldn't be quarantined if she shows no symptoms of Ebola. In Chicago today, a Cook County judge ordered the immediate release of All-Story Simon, a former death row inmate. Simon was convicted of a double homicide in 1982. The conviction came after Anthony Porter, the man originally convicted of the crime, was released when Simon confessed on video. However, Simon now claims he was coerced into confessing. After reviewing the case, Judge Anita Alvarez determined he was innocent. In a surprise announcement, Apple CEO Tim Cook says he's gay. Cook wrote an article in this week's Bloomberg Business Week saying he is proud to be gay and states that Apple will continue to fight for LGBT values. While his sexuality was known among many Apple employees, this was the first time Cook spoke about it publicly. It's Halloween season and it's important to be safe on the streets. In fact, it's important for people to be street smart year-round. Studio 51's Carly Free reports on the growing threat of street harassment.
Harassment happens online, in workplaces, and in private life. But some people are joining together to stop harassment on public streets.
Loyola student Elizabeth Pineda says street harassment is a major issue because people do not necessarily know when it is happening.
Like, say you're walking to the store and you're wearing like shorts or something like that, and like some guy yells at you out like the car window, or getting whistled at.
Women in Leadership Loyola, also known as WILL, is a group of students working to combat street harassment in Chicago. In efforts to stop this, WILL is encouraging the Loyola community to speak out. Through a series of events being held, students can express their objection to harassment through slam poetry, music, and public speaking. But the issue goes beyond Chicago. One Minnesota woman is working to combat this issue through her website cardsagainst.harassment.com. Lindsay, who is only going by her first name for security reasons, created a website to help people respond to these encounters. As a spinoff to the popular game Cards Against Humanity, handing out cards against harassment is a way to respond to these violating comments in a non-confrontational way. The cards are free to print out from the website, and although this type of harassment is not gender-specific, research does suggest that women are harassed more than men when walking on streets. In a national survey conducted earlier this year by StopStreetHarassment.org, 65% of women reported street harassment, while 25% of men reported being harassed. And while street harassment can make people feel violated, it is not considered a crime. One member of WILL, Danielle Sullivan, talks about why it's an issue.
It's kind of a gateway. When we allow street harassment to come, we allow victim blaming to happen.
Loyola's campus safety website advises students to remain aware of their surroundings while walking on public streets. For Studio 51, I'm Carly Free.
And finally, in the spirit of Halloween, horror author R.L. Stine published a new scary story on Twitter. In a series of 15 tweets, Stine live-tweeted a tale of a man and a creepy monster he found in his egg salad sandwich. I won't spoil it for you, but maybe you might want to switch to peanut butter and jelly. This has been your news summary. I'm Joaquin Carrig.
Thanks, Joaquin. Up next, we have Studio 51's Health Beat with Stephanie Buffamonte on a new way to detect cancer. Stephanie?
A new invention by Google may detect cancer in the future. People would take a small pill that would search for cancerous cells in the patient's bloodstream. This invention could detect early stages of cancer, something regular blood tests cannot always do. Google says they're looking for partners to license the pill. Got milk? We have always believed milk is good for your health, but a new study published this week in the British Medical Journal reported just the opposite. According to the study, women who had drank the USDA recommendation of 3 glasses of milk a day have an increased risk of cancer and cardiovascular disease. Males who had 3 or more glasses of milk increased their death rate by 10%. However, the study says products like yogurt and cheese are helpful. This same study stressed that the results must be viewed with caution. Researchers believe more studies must be done before regulations could change. Forget about the milk. Here's a downer for you whiskey lovers. 3 countries, Finland, Sweden, and Norway, have recalled Fireball Cinnamon whiskey. Officials are concerned with the amount of propylene glycol in the formula. Propylene glycol is a product found in some foods, drinks, cosmetics, antifreeze, and de-icing solutions. The FDA considers this ingredient generally recognized as safe, but Europe has stricter guidelines. Last week, the whiskey owners made the mistake of sending the United States shipment, which has higher levels of propylene glycol in it, to Europe. The company would not comment on how much propylene is in the U.S. formula compared to Europe's, but did say that they only use 1/8 of the ingredient that the FDA allows. For now, Fireball is still on U.S. shelves. For Studio 51, I'm Stephanie Buffamonte.
Thanks, Stephanie. The San Francisco Giants just took home another World Series title. Here's Emma Wheeler with sports in 51 seconds. All right, Emma, the clock starts now.
The World Series has come to an end, and I hate to say it, but an expected one. The Giants beat Kansas City last night 3-2, and once again, reign as champs. The Royals had almost 30 years to prepare for this World Series, and they put up the best fight the Giants have ever seen as the only team to bring them to Game 7. For true Royals fans, you should be proud. You've brought baseball back to Kansas City. Everyone else that has been cheering on the Royals this last week, it's time to head home and hope that next year your team can end the Giants' era. Speaking of an era, the Bears lost again on Sunday in a blowout against the Patriots, 51-23. 51 points. Were they playing a high school basketball game in New England? Let's hope Mark Trestman can take advantage of this bye week and get that defense back together if they want any hopes at the playoffs. Now, I'm almost out of time, but I have to mention the Bulls smackdown on the Knicks last night, 104-80. But that's not what's important. One name showed up in the box score, the number one. Derrick Rose is finally back. Now, LeBron had his return, and that was fine. But this return, all 13 points and 21 minutes of it, everything really was coming up roses. Number one on the court, number one in our hearts. We're glad to see you back, Derrick. With sports in almost 51 seconds, I'm Emma Wheeler.
Thanks, Emma, and sorry for the time restraint. Well, baseball's over before November 1st, and I've heard it's going to snow tomorrow. That's lucky for all the baseball teams who don't have to play anymore.
That's true, and the cold weather gets me excited for hockey season to get into full swing. But I don't even want to talk about the Bears.
Me neither, but you know what? We don't have to with this week's bye. But we're not going anywhere. There's plenty more Studio 51 after this break, which features a student-produced message for all you cheaters out there.
Are your parents home later? We can hang. LUV love you. JK. Holla back. Holla back. Holla back. Are you with your friends? That's lame. We're in a huge fight right now. XO. What'd you dream about? Something I did? Are you on your way to the mall? I'm lonely. Nude pics. Send me some. Text me.
We all know the dangerous consequences of plagiarism. You could fail a class, be expelled, be rejected from medical school, lose your dream job, lose your visa and be deported, or even face jail time. Tonight, however, I want to share with you the most dangerous consequence of all, zombification. That's right. If you plagiarize, you can become a brain-eating zombie. It all begins so innocently. It's an act of cutting and pasting, of stealing someone's work and passing it off as your own, or even using an assignment from a previous class. Perhaps you are so relieved at turning in your assignment that you break out and dance. Who cares if it's plagiarized, as long as it gets the job done? But then, the nightmare begins. Your skin starts taking on various shades of gray and green. Your eyes get dark and hollowed out. Your movements become clumsy. Your friends run away from you. Before you know it, you're a full-fledged zombie with no original ideas of your own. So you are forced to feed on the brains of others. This does not have to be your fate. Just do the right thing. Turn in your own work with your own original ideas, so you don't have to feed on the brains of others.
Welcome back to Studio 51. I'm Samantha Sartori. It's Election Day in Illinois this Tuesday. Are you going to vote? Many polls say that young adults are disenchanted with our election process. Loyola Phoenix news editor Grace Runkle is here to discuss that issue.
Thanks, Sam. And thank you, Grace, for taking the time to sit down with us today. So this issue of the Phoenix is all about the election. And I noticed that one of the articles this week talks about why some young people are choosing not to vote. Why do you personally think this is the case?
Well, for most young voters, up until this point in their lives, it's been their parents' responsibility to go to the polls and voice their opinions. And now they're starting to realize that it's their responsibility, their duty to go to the polls and elect our next leaders. So I think it's just a transition phase for them where they need to decide that it's their responsibility now.
Okay. One of the biggest reasons that the Phoenix article gives about why young people aren't voting is that they simply don't have the time to do it. So what I'm wondering is, if these young adults don't have the time to vote, do you really think they're taking the time to, research the candidates, research the issues, and make an informed decision about their candidates and the ballot proposals?
I don't think that young voters are taking the time to research current events, issues, or the candidates running in elections, but it's their civic duty to do so. I mean, I honestly don't think that many college students are sitting down with a newspaper or at a news site each day, but that's what they need to be doing. It's their duty and responsibility.
Okay, so you think that young adults need to both vote and also do as much research as they possibly can, but do you think that it's important for them to vote if they haven't done their research and they haven't, been able to make the most informed decision possible?
They definitely should not go in and vote blindly. They need to do their research. We actually did a Rambler response in the last issue of the Phoenix, and we found that a lot of voters weren't going to vote because they didn't think that they could have an informed response or make an informed decision. But like I said, it's their responsibility to look up these current events and these issues at hand and make an informed decision about them.
Okay. What are some of the sources that you personally have used to research some of these candidates and some of the ballot proposals that are coming up, such as minimum wage raising, or the decision to whether to allow or not require companies to pay for birth control for their female employees?
I think just staying up to date on current events is the most important thing, and that means looking at local newspapers and news organizations like the Chicago Tribune, national organizations, and then also international, because they can often give you more of a less biased insight into what's going on in your own country.
Okay, well, I want to go back to local papers, because the Chicago Tribune always does endorsements for political candidates, whether it's local or whatever, state, national. And the Sun-Times actually made a bold move in bringing back their endorsement, even though they haven't done it in a long time. Why didn't the Phoenix do that?
We couldn't come to a consensus on who to choose to endorse, but we kind of felt that just getting students out to the polls was a bigger issue that we needed to address, just telling students how important it is that they go to the polls and voice their opinions.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Grace, for taking the time to sit down with us.
Thanks for having me.
And for more on the election, check out this week's issue of the Phoenix. Now, earlier in our show, we had a report on the ballot proposal to raise the minimum wage. Studio 51's Alex Whitler now has her take on another important issue. Alex?
You've already heard about minimum wage, so let's talk about another major ballot proposal. It's about birth control. Here's how the proposal appears on Tuesday's ballot. Shall any health insurance plan in Illinois that provides prescription drug coverage be required to include prescription birth control as part of that coverage? This ballot proposal is a throwback to the Hobby Lobby Supreme Court decision in which allowed some employers to deny birth control coverage based on religious grounds. Basically, here's what this is asking. Should the cost of birth control drugs be included in your health insurance coverage? Honestly, I haven't made up my mind on how I would vote on this, and here's why. Personally, based on my religious background and for my body, I don't feel the need to use birth control, but that's my right. But I also understand women who choose to use it, and that's theirs. But here's the real issue. A pack of 36 male condoms costs $25. That's less than $1 a condom. Compare that to 1 month of birth control pills. That can cost over $150. Why is it that in this male-dominated society, women constantly pay more for consumer items? Think about it. Deodorant, clothing, shoes, skincare, these and more items all cost more for women than they do for men. And birth control is big on the list. I think this ballot proposal is an issue based on women's needs and equality, and the state legislature should give it serious consideration. For Studio 51's commentary, I'm Alex Whitler.
Thanks, Alex. After the break, we'll have an entertainment talk about Chicago's spooktacular celebration, and with trick-or-treat time coming up, our foodie treats herself to something sweet.
You might want to consider wearing a coat over your Halloween costume when you hear this weekend's weather forecast. We'll be right back.
I got no pulse, so losing. Shocking. Drives it road all the time. Just had a few drinks. Just can't be happening.
Are we clear?
Clear. We're just buzzed. Just buzzed. You didn't tell us that, sir. You're right. This isn't happening. You'll be fine.
I feel good.
Really? No, not really.
Buzz driving.
Clear.
Maybe we should stop acting like it's no big deal.
Shocking.
Who says you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Maybe you should go to your shelter and get a mature dog who will make your blues disappear. How's that for tricks? I got picked. Wow.
Welcome back. I'm Lauren DeVito.
And I'm Samantha Sartori for Studio 51. We all know it's Halloween season, but right outside our studio, I've already spotted some people in costume.
Me too. I saw Catwoman, Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, and so many others. To get us into the Halloween spirit, here's our entertainment reporter, Kevin Carroll.
You guys said Studio 54, right? Well, anyways, as you can see, Halloween is just around the corner, and I'm more than ready to celebrate my favorite holiday of the year. There are plenty of events happening in the city, so you don't have to spend all your time passing out candy to trick-or-treaters. Keeping up with tradition, the famous Music Box Theater will be screening the Hollywood classic Rocky Horror Picture Show at midnight on Halloween night. For those of you that would rather be out with the crowds for the holiday, a pub crawl may be your choice activity. The Happy Hour Halloween pub crawl is happening Thursday the 30th through November 1st. $25 tickets are available through pubcrawl.com. And don't forget that tonight is the annual Halloween on Halsted parade. The parade runs from Belmont to Halsted and allows people to join the route. 6:30 is the start time for registration, and prizes will be awarded some of the best costumes. I have my costume ready, but maybe you don't. In case you aren't ready, here are a few tips for making your costume fun or spooky rather than offensive or insensitive. Domestic abuse is never something to laugh at, and it's no different on Halloween. I say put your Ray Rice jersey in the closet and try for a different sports team this year. When 2 men were executed by ISIS members, they weren't laughing, so let's not turn a moment of real-life terror into a moment of fun. Halloween is all about fun, so be goofy with it. Break out your big wigs, your witches' hats, and your vampire teeth. Celebrating with the spirit of the holiday will make your day that much more fun. For Studio 51, I'm Kevin Carroll. Don't forget your candy.
Thanks, Kevin. That disco look is great on you. Just around the corner from Studio 51 is one of the sweetest spots in Chicago. Our foodie Jade Anderson takes us there.
Ola Emerson is one of the many baristas who creates the tasty treats at Ghirardelli's Chocolate Company on Michigan Ave. I recently discovered one of their creations, and it quickly became my favorite ice cream sundae in Chicago. The story behind the Ocean Beach Sundae is that it's named after the beach that runs along the west coast of Ghirardelli's hometown, San Francisco. The creators wanted to give ice cream lovers all around the nation a trademark taste of the city where it all began. It has sea salt to give you that ocean feel, chocolate fudge, caramel, vanilla ice cream, and it's topped off with whipped cream and a caramel Ghirardelli square. If you're not in the mood for ice cream, there are a number of hot drinks, and of course, you can never go wrong with the traditional Ghirardelli chocolate square. No matter what you choose, you'll be sure to indulge in a flavorful treat. But try to get there early in the day because in the afternoon, the store is overcrowded with lots of shoppers hoping to get a snack. This has been The Taste. For Studio 51, I'm Jade Anderson.
Thanks, Jade. Gosh, I am just salivating for one of those sundaes. Have you ever been to Ghirardelli?
I have, and I can attest, those are absolutely delicious.
I really want to go try one, but I keep hearing that it's going to be cold this weekend. Do you think it's worth it?
There's never a bad time for chocolate.
That's true, and maybe that hot fudge will keep me warm. Last weekend's warm weather got our hopes up for some sunny skies to finish off October. Can we hope for more of the same this weekend? Chelsea Kuchik can answer that for us. Chelsea?
Thanks, guys. Well, I hate to be the one to admit it, but I think the cold weather is finally here to stay. I was outside this morning wearing a jacket and my scarf, and I was definitely feeling that winter chill. Rumor has it that we might even see the first snowfall of the season this weekend, so I'd definitely keep your eyes open for that. Nevertheless, let's move into our weekend weather forecast. Starting with Friday, which is Halloween, I'm definitely going to recommend that you guys add a few more layers to your costumes because it's going to be a cold one. We're expecting high winds and possible showers with a high of 43 and a low of 38. Then, moving into Saturday, it's going to remain about the same temperature-wise, but expect the clouds to clear up a little. We're hoping for partly cloudy skies, a high of 45 and a low of 36. Then finally, moving into Sunday, expect the clouds to come back and with a vengeance. It's going to stay cloudy, so I suggest you can spend that day to sleep off all the fun you had this weekend. We're expecting mostly cloudy skies with a high of 46 and a low of 43. This has been your weekend weather forecast with Studio 51 News. I'm Chelsea Kuchik, wishing you a safe and fun Halloween. Thanks, and back to the desk.
Thanks, Chelsea. I guess my costume will have to stay hidden under a coat until I get to the party I'm going to. So Lauren, what are you dressing up as?
Well, I'm being one of the characters from Rocky Horror Picture Show, if you've ever seen it. I'm playing Columbia. I'm actually in the show that Kevin brought up in his entertainment segment, just in the spirit of disclosure.
Oh yeah, well, break a leg this weekend.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's episode of Studio 51. I'm Samantha Sartori.
And I'm Lauren DeVito. We'll see you next week. Stay creepy, kids, and have a safe Halloween.